Hi, everyone, and welcome to Weekly Consults with Anne. And thank you so much for all the ideas and all the suggestions that you guys came up with. And thank you so much for so many of the comments that you guys put in that are so helpful and so supportive. I'm just reading one from Chelsea yesterday posted about going on vacation with her son, who's 4, and high functioning autism, first vacation together. And a mom named Monica has a 6-year-old daughter. And everything that she talked about in there is what I've been talking about. It's just a living, breathing example of that, but really being very present and very aware of what her daughter needed. So taking a portable DVD player, snacks, milk, like comfort things for her. And then also her mom travels with her sometimes, but it really is like I'm doing a parenting telecall in another place. And one of the things that we talked about was being really present with your kids and asking yourself, like, being as present with your kids are as you were when you were dating your spouse, or as you are when you're dating your current person, or as you are when you go to a job interview, or when you're talking with a friend and you get the download of everything that's going on with them, like being that present and asking yourself, what do they need? Like, what's going to make this really easy on them? And is that something that I can provide? Is that something that I can do? Like that. So good on you. I love these. I love these comments. And then the good luck. Yeah, have a great time. Like, what is so questions for your son is how and where does your son, how does your son soothe himself? And what are go-to games or books or videos or whatever that work all the time. One of my brothers loved the story The Ugly Duckling, and he would cry after it over and over and over again, but that was his favorite story. I had favorite stories, and I was definitely brought up at a time when there were no DVDs and like that kind of stuff. But ask yourselves, what does my child actually require? Like, what's going to make it easy for him? And then is that something that we can do? And I get the overwhelm. I get that if you have a ton of kids and you're a single parent or whatever, I get that that may seem like a tall order. But one of the questions that I find myself asking and encouraging parents to ask is, who or what can I add to my life? Which is a funny question when you're completely overwhelmed. But like Monica adds her mom to the trips, right? And her mom is a huge contribution to her. So for those of you struggling alone, is there anybody that you can invite, anybody that you can add to your life or to a moment who can actually help, right? Who can be helpful like that. So cool. So the topic, Amy's one of the parents in the group who has either a daughter or daughters with ADD, ADHD. Yes, autism. I can't remember. And just wondering about it, maybe ADD and ADHD, because so much is written about boys, right? And John and I were just laughing right before John and I were just laughing right before I went live about how different boys are from girls. They really are. A friend of mine called me yesterday and said, or I was talking with her, and she goes, "Oh, sweetie," and she has a 4-year-old son. And she goes, "What are you doing?" And then she goes, "Yeah, I can see." And I said, "What's up?" And she said, "Well, he's eating those goldfish, and he's just trying to fold one of them into the foreskin of his penis." And I started laughing, and I thought, welcome to 4-year-old boys discovering their bodies, right? That's actually developmentally totally appropriate. It's what they do, and that's a boy thing. Like a girl would never do that. And so a lot of the literature about kids with ADD and ADHD is focused on boys because they're the ones who are like her son. They're rambunctious. They're out in they're doing. And typically, like stereotypically, boys do. They play. They get together and they do stuff together, like sports, like that kind of stuff. And typically, when girls get together, they talk. Right? They talk and talk and talk. And so talk oftentimes is the basis of girls' communication. Doing things together oftentimes is the basis of boys' communication. And so for boys who've been diagnosed with hyperactivity, not the inattentive type, but the really, out there rambunctious type, that's what a lot of the literature is written towards. And I just checked in the diagnostic manual, and it says that there are more boys that have been diagnosed with ADD and ADHD than girls, like pretty much by a 2-to-1 margin. But I wonder first of all, I wonder who cares and what does it matter? And then I wonder whether those sort of innate differences in stereotypical boys and stereotypical girls, if they weren't actually taken into consideration, whether the numbers would be a little different. Like not every rambunctious boy has ADD and ADHD, and not every boy who blurts out has ADD and ADHD, and not every girl who is quiet sitting in class with a zillion thoughts racing through their head and not able to focus or concentrate on the one thing that the teacher's telling her to focus and concentrate on, and feeling really bad and sort of crying on the inside doesn't have, what if those are also symptoms of ADHD and attentive type that don't necessarily come to the surface and miss the diagnosis? So again, like back to what we were talking about right at the very beginning with the difference of boys and girls, and then also that lovely, like really cool exchange between Chelsea and Monica about going, like an event, going on a vacation with a kid who's got sensory issues and high functioning autism or anywhere on the spectrum. And again, one of my favorite tools, you guys, is to ask a question. And it's not to look for the right answer that you can then sort of instill into everything that you do so that nothing difficult ever comes up again. No, asking the question it's like living. I have a friend who said to me one time when I was, how, I don't know if you ever take a class or talk to a therapist or do any kind of training or something like that, and you're looking for something more, you're looking for something different, and somebody says something that completely scrambles your brains, that just completely fries you. Like that's happened to me quite a bit. And after this one class, I went up to the guy who was leading the class and I said, I don't even know what to do anymore. Like I'm just like so spaced out. And he said, here's the deal. Life is like quicksand. And if you stop moving, you sink. He said, just keep moving. Just keep choosing. So as a parent with kids with ADD, ADHD, autism, try stuff out. Ask a question. Yes, no. Is this going to work? Yes or no? And if it doesn't work, do something different. Like nothing is ever locked in. But back to the difference between boys and girls. Amy, I hope you're on here. And if you are, could you please ask me a question or do something so that I know sort of where to go? I'm not sure what it is that's coming up that's a difficulty. But again, one of the differences between me and almost every other therapist that I know is that I'm not looking for an answer. I'm looking for tools to give to you guys so that in the moment you can use one of them. And and know what to do, how to handle it, how to respond, like that kind of stuff in the moment, and then keep moving, right? This is not about like being in school and getting the right answer. This really is about living. And you've got these amazing kids, and they are difficult. They're different. Many of them are pretty difficult. And rather than sinking into the morass of, oh my God, this is so terrible, it's like, no, sometimes it is hard and sometimes it is difficult. And what question can you ask? Where can you go? Who can you add to your life? What is this? Is one of my like main go-to questions. What is that? What's she saying? Like, what's going on with her? So what are some of the symptoms of your daughters? Or are they acting like boys? Are they not stereotypical girls? And are they acting like boys? Are they just out there in everybody's face talking, blurting out, right? The only difference is that they got pigtails and not a crew cut or whatever. But like, what is it going on? What is going on with your daughters or with the girls in your families who either have been diagnosed with ADD and ADHD and or autism or not? But what questions do you have for me about girls and how to handle them? Because it's almost like I need some there. I will say, what question can you ask? But I'll ask the question with you, and we can have an exchange. Does that help? And it may be that this is sort of a short one, and next week we do a longer, more extended version of it. But here's another difference between me and a lot of other therapists. I'm not going to show up with a whole bunch of PowerPoints and give you a lecture and like that kind of stuff. I'm really interactive. And so I'm really interested in what's going on with you right now and what questions you have. And I get that this is maybe the middle of the day. And it may not be convenient or a good time or whatever, but let's see if we can open up the channels a little bit and just be a little more interactive. Because if nobody has a question or a comment for me, I'm going to end it, and we'll call this one part 1, and we'll call the one next week part 2. And maybe we'll have direction about where to go. So I'll give you guys a couple minutes, or a couple of little bit. What, anything out there? Any parents with daughters who are pulling their hair out, don't know what to do? Or with sons who are pulling their hair out and don't know what to do? So I just want to tell you just a quick anecdote about a friend of mine who was in a class with me this weekend, and somebody was asking her, she has 2 sons, and somebody was asking her about controlling the kids or trying to like make them do what she wants them to do, whatever. And they asked her how she sort of approaches it. And she said, oh, it was about the question was about, how do you love your kids? Like when they're really difficult, how do you do that? And she just said really simply, she said, one of them is easier than the other. And one of them, I just don't have, quote, problems with. We've always communicated energetically and easily. And the other one is a little bit more of a challenge. But she said, the reality is I adore both of them for who they are, for the differences that they are, for the whatever. I just adore them. And you could feel that in her as she was saying that. And it's like, anyway, try that out. Do you adore your kids even when they're awful? Like, the thing about adoring them or loving them like that for who they are is like, I don't know if you're going to live to be 5 or 6 or whatever, because right now I don't know what to do with you, but you got to help me out. Like, right? Okay. All right. So no, daughter, my son loves basketball, but has not many friends. I'm struggling with being structured and often stressed. What to do? And there are a couple of questions. Okay, cool. I just got the second one. So the thing about friends. Okay, thank you. He's 9. Your son, who's 9. Does he want to have friends? Because kids are really different and adults are really different. Like some people have multiple friends. There's sort of like a core group. Like when I was in college, there was a core group of us. And at various times in my life, I've been with a group of friends where, you know, there was 5 or 6 of us and we traveled like a pack. We just did everything together. And then there are other times where I have like a bestie, like I have a best friend, and I was married for 20 years. And for many years, he was my best friend. Um, and so not every kid, and then there are acquaintances, right? And some kids have a lot of ease with acquaintances. Like they don't ever meet a stranger, right? Like everybody is a potential friend. Um, okay, so he does want to have friends. So what is it that keeps him from having friends? Like one of the when I worked at the residential treatment center, one of the groups that I did was they were called socialization groups, but it was really like how to how to make friends, how to be a friend, how to have a friend, like that kind of stuff. And they actually didn't know. And so some of the things that Trina talked about with bodies and stuff like that, like I don't know how your son is with distance between him and somebody else. Like is he somebody who jumps up into somebody's face and makes it hard for them to respond, or does he blurt out, or does he interrupt, or does he whatever? But one of the things that you can ask him is questions about making friends or having friends, or what he notices about kids who actually do have friends. Like, do you know somebody who has a lot of friends? And he'll probably say yes. And you can ask him, so what's one quality about that person? Like, what's one thing that person does with the friends? And just have a conversation with him and ask him questions. I wonder whether you could do that. I wonder whether you could be more like that. And do you know people who have no friends? And what do you notice about them? Like what is it about them that makes it difficult for people to be their friends? Are they really critical, or do they push people away? Are they so different people don't know what to do with them? Are they whatever? But really to have a conversation with him and not make him wrong, and just ask him tons of questions, because your kids know this stuff. And again, back to how do you create change with kids? You can't make them be or do something that they don't want to do and that they're not. But what you can do is give them information and then let them choose something different. So the information that you can give to him is almost like information that he has in himself already. Like he knows all this stuff, no matter what his diagnosis is. And when you're really patient and not trying to make him have an answer that you have in your head, but really let him come up with it. And also just know the changes may occur like in a tiny little way, you know, and they may be really slow. And just is he a child who can receive compliments? Like a lot of kids can't. Some kids can, and a lot of kids can't. So don't compliment him on whatever change he makes. Like if he says, "Oh, I came home and so was really nice to me," say, "Oh, wow, how cool is that? What was that like?" Instead of, "Yay, I'm so proud of you," to a kid who doesn't like compliments, you know, like that kind of stuff. Like really tap into him. Does that help? He's going to another class, music class. Yeah, asking questions. All right, sweetie. So you're not so great at asking questions. Really? So are you somebody who grew up needing to always have the right answer? Is that what asking, or if you asked a question, were you seen as being dumb or stupid or not knowing or less than or whatever? Like that's just a lot of crap. I think that there's a really cool book. I don't know this, and we'll put the link to it. It's called The Boy, the Mole, the Fox, and the Horse. And the author is Charlie Mackesy, Mackesy, and I bet John can put the link in the thread for you. But it's really, really, really awesome, and I would just encourage you to read it. I cried all the way through, and so okay, so here's an exchange between the boy and the horse. What is the bravest thing you ever said? Asked the boy. Help, said the horse. And here's the picture for it. I don't know whether you, oops, wrong way. Can you see that? Look at that. Look at those pictures. Aren't they like freaking gorgeous? And then on the next page, when have you been at your strongest? Asked the horse. When I dared to show my weakness. And I would replace the word weakness with, it's this one, with vulnerability, right? Because that's really what he's saying. And then the page after that is, asking for help isn't giving up, said the horse. It's refusing to give up. So I'm going to start crying, so I have to stop. But anyway, this is just an awesome book. It came out in November last year, and I've just fallen in love with it. Get the book and get a box of Kleenex. Thank you, John. I grew up in a Christian family. They had the answers. I didn't have to ask anything. I know. And here's the deal. Having this conversation with me is an indication to me that you know that there's something else out there besides needing to have all the answers and needing to be right and needing to not be wrong and needing to be the same and needing to not be different. And so good on you. I'm happy that you're here. All right, so he's going to another class after the summer. I would ask, like, I have a bunch of questions for you. Can you visit the other class first? Can you talk with the teacher ahead of time? I have a friend who's actually retiring from teaching this year, but she taught a combination kindergarten, first grade class at a charter school outside of Denver for years. And she's actually teacher of the year in Colorado. She's awesome. And one of the things she used to do before the start of every year is she would do home visits to all the kids coming into her class. And she just call the parents and make appointments and go see them, to introduce herself to them and to see the kids and to see, their families and what it was like being a kid, not being that kid, not in school. But there are some teachers who are really responsive, and hopefully he's lucky enough to have drawn a teacher who's responsive, who's like that. All right, so I have the first question. I might have ADD myself, and I have the hardest time to give my son something else to do than the iPad. Again, I would ask questions like, and my questions are for you, like, what's your son really good at? What is he passionate about? What does he love? Usually almost everybody has some kind of an interest, and oftentimes the interests are fleeting. Like I remember when I was in the 4th grade, the most favorite report that I ever did was on how birds fly. And I freaking loved it. I just loved that. But I was just enthralled with birds and who they are and how they're made and the different kinds of birds and how they fly. And anyway, I'll just stop there. But don't all of us have something that we just love? Like, what is it that your kids love? And then, and if you don't get into this like push-pull fight about the iPad control thing, about iPad yes or no, you can have this conversation with him when he's in the car and he doesn't have the iPad or sometime. But you can also say to him, hey, can you help me out here? Like, and again, just have a conversation with him. And if it's not okay with you for him to be on his iPad 24/7, what are some other things? Like go back and look at that post under Chelsea Williams that Monica wrote about, because one of the things that she says towards the end of her comment, but then she does not mind hotels and most things we encounter. But then again, that's why we bring the tablet and DVD player. They calm her down. And then she talked about swimming. Once she's in the water, she's in her happy place. Once in the water, she's in her happy place. The whole world could come down and she would be unbothered. Like, are there some of the more traditional scientific, empirically based scientific sort of pronouncements about kids with ADD, ADHD, and autism are this sense of, what are they? Oh, regulation. That's what it's called, sensory regulation. And some of the activities that really assist kids in like regulating their brains are swimming, trampolines, running, anything that's left, right, up, down, rowing, back and forth, horseback riding, like all of those kinds of things. Are any of those a possibility for your child, right? So, does that help? All right, you guys, you're awesome. And if you would like to, if you have, one of the things that I love about you guys is that even though you may not be on it right now, many of you watch it afterwards. So thank you for that. And those of you who are on it now, I'm so grateful for you. Thank you. And those of you who watch it later, if you want to put a comment, if you want to put some specific questions about girls and about boys and differences and diagnoses and about all this stuff, about this topic, about things that are coming up for you, I'm happy to address questions later if you guys can't be on live. So let me know. But if we don't, yeah, they are beautiful pictures. All right. If we don't have anything else, I'm going to say thank you so much. I adore all of you. You guys are awesome. And we'll get notes in. I'm like a bad girl. I think with this week, I owe 3 weeks worth of notes, and I'll get to those today. All right. Love you lots. Bye.